We have a crowd that is formed, and I believe more people are going to join us. Hello, everybody. I know everyone who's actually logged on, and I see Joanna from Chicago and Frank from here in Pleasanton, and my colleague Dean Edwards and Brian Roper, who's out in the industry and an MBA. We see him on Facebook a lot, but and others are going to be joining. We got on stage with us Steve Siepser, longtime ophthalmologist and friend, and Tony Sterrett, who has been running ophthalmic practices. Tony, what, since fire was invented?
It's been about 25 years.
That's great. That's great. So it's great to see folks, and more people will be joining, but we wanted to get together in part because I am a lifelong student of customer experience. It's something that I am deeply passionate about. And in the context of working with doctors and their practices, we could really frame it as patient experience. And I just share a story. The other day, we got a notice in the mail that said that we had to go to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles here in town, because our license plates were ready. They had arrived. And I was excited about it because we got some vanity plates that go with our new Tesla Model Y. And it's kind of a cute little saying, and my wife is excited. But let me tell you what I wasn't excited about. I wasn't excited about going to the DMV because I'd be waiting in line, because going to DMV is synonymous with waiting. And, whenever I have to wait in a line anywhere, any place, TSA, DMV, grocery store, if it's more than a few minutes, I start fantasizing about what I would do to change things. And I'm kind of analyzing, I'm looking at the front of the line. I just automatically start looking at the flow and the processes and say, hey, how would I do it better? Well, I will tell you that the reality is better than the fantasy. I've known Bernie Haffey for the better part. Gosh, Bernie, it's been well over 20 years. It's when we started, we were competitors in the eczema laser business. And then we were colleagues with Intralaser, where you asked me to come as a consultant and help you. And the Intralaser story has been a great one. And in that process that was my first exposure to something called HPMS, or High Performance Management System. And I can assure you, looking back, that HPMS was the secret sauce that helped Intralaser reach incredible commercial success and then have a very nice exit where they were purchased by AMO, then Abbott, now J&J. But they're there with the Vizix laser as part of their refractive suite. And Bernie, since that time, has led a couple of other organizations, but where I think he's really found his footing is as a consultant and as an advisor to companies. And he now, along with his partner Lewis, have worked with, I think you said, Bernie, more than 40 different management teams on projects. And where they come in is taking the principles of high performance management and applying them to the organization. And they've worked with organizations that are very small, so including several medical practices, and very large, all the way to Fortune 100 and maybe even a Fortune 50 in there. And they use the methods and statistical frameworks that have been around since post-World War II. They didn't invent anything, but they've taken stuff that was developed by guys named Edward Deming and Joe Juran, and of course, Drucker. And they've basically operationalized this to such an extent that they've come into medical practices. And one of them was a shared client that we both had, Vance Thompson and Vance Thompson Vision. I started working with Vance in 2005 and really helped set, I think, the foundation for where they are today, which is an unbelievable patient experience and a place to work. People love working there. Bernie and Lewis went in there several years after I did and really helped probably the biggest irritation in that practice, which was wait times. Just people would complain. They say, we love Vance, but we hate how long we have to wait to see him. And they used their methods and their processes to help Vance Thompson Vision reduce wait by more than half. They took what was an over 3 hours to get a consultation for refractive surgery and cut it down to something like 75 minutes. That's the total appointment time. And then they also cut the wait time. So when you arrived, how long you had to sit in that reception area, because they don't call it a waiting room. They're better than that. But you still had to wait a long time to get the process started. And by using statistics and analysis and data, they were able to help Vance Thompson Vision, led by Vance, led by John Burdall, and led by Matt Jensen, crush down these wait times. Well, the result is it's a more fun place to go. It showed up in their customer surveys. It showed up in their employee surveys in terms of willingness to recommend Vance Thompson Vision as a place to work. And it certainly showed up in their business results, because by crushing down these wait times, they improved their capacity and their throughput and their flow. And in coming up with my book, and one of the foundational insights was to blow up the waiting room, I called Bernie one day last spring. I said, Bernie, what can we do together? And we started talking, and we got Lewis involved. And that's what led to this evening, to be able to have a session where we could basically introduce you to some tools and some techniques to attack the number one problem. The number one cause of dissatisfaction in going to see the doctor is wait. And when we think about the world around us and all the amazing experiences that we can have, we know that the ones that we like best are places that didn't make us wait. They've solved this problem. So if it can happen in every other industry, by gosh, why can't it happen in healthcare? And that's really why we're here tonight. And we're going to spend a few minutes listening to Lewis. He's going to introduce us to some of the tools. We're going to be very conversational about this between Lewis and I, and a little bit of Bernie, and then we're going to open it up. And if someone on this call tonight has a problem that they want to bring up, something that is frustrating them in a practice they're in, or if they're in industry, a practice they're working with, yeah, we'll give you the mic, or you can type in the question and we'll take what we can. We want to respect people's time, because time is the most precious resource we have, as long as we're here alive on Earth. And with that, I will stop talking and turn it over to my colleague, Lewis. I'll just say a couple words of introduction, and Bernie, turn on your mic, because you're gonna have to add on to what I say. So Lewis is young, he is smart, he has incredible experience. He is actually, I think at the age of 30, he was running one of Medtronic's manufacturing plants. And that might have been where Bernie first ran into him. But he was running a manufacturing plant at a young age, and he was dealing with this issue of capacity and flow and throughput and stuff we're going to talk about tonight all the time. Bernie, what else would you say about Lewis?
He's a great partner, and happy to have him on board with our firm over the last 4 or 5 years, and looking forward to his presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Bernie, and thank you, Sharif, for the nice words. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, my background is in Lean and Six Sigma, which is what's used. A lot of the techniques, everything from making our phones as reliable and low cost, even though, Apple phones aren't always low cost, to the cars you drive, to everything. But it also is used for people processes. It's used for helping improve experiences, whether it's you go to a Ritz-Carlton or, another luxury hotel, or you go to a doctor's office. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Sharif has Beyond Bedside Manner, which has this concept of blowing up the waiting room. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And just what you're going to get from today is a small piece that we think, while simple, will be very effective, and you'll be able to use as early as tomorrow when you go into work, of looking at your opportunities to improve the flow of patients differently and better and structured. So I'll take you through a few concepts there. A few logistics items. At the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see a Q&A button, so you can ask questions there. Sharif, Bernie, and I will be looking at that throughout the session. You can also use chat to talk to us or to the group. And yeah, we'll stop from time to time to answer questions and probably put you on the mic. So if you're okay with it, we'll unmute you if you have a question. But would really like you to get something out of today to help you deal with a constraint in your practice. So with that, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see everything good on your end, Sharif?
You're good.
Okay.
Just make it big, because you got something behind it. There you go.
Good. So yeah, let's talk about this. We're here today to talk about wait times. And this is an example. Before COVID, we all, probably have experience where we're in long, long lines at the airport. And the concept that we're talking about today goes like this, where we could make checking in and doing a baggage drop faster, We could make things on the other end of this this TSA screening faster and more efficient and everything. It's not going to change the time you spend in this line. And so the whole point of today is we're going to talk about a concept of bottlenecks, which is those points of flow that are constricted. And so the whole idea of bottlenecks is, you know, in TSA terms here, you know, making other processes outside of that TSA checkpoint is not going to improve your experience of the line. We have to find ways to expand the number of TSA checkpoints or make them faster. And again, today we'll go through some of the concepts to structure your thinking about how to do something like that. Another thing I want to show, which is, this is Mount Everest, and this is a line. So, you know, lines are something that we see at the top of the earth and everywhere in between. Again, another experience where 20 minutes to an hour and a half, people are waiting. Again, there's a constraint, and it's you know, up at the top of people wanting to get there. But just, you know, not somewhere you want to be waiting. Well, we're not dealing with Mount Everest or TSA checkpoints, but many of you are in maybe a physician's working in a physician's office, and waiting appears like this, of people sitting, whether it's in a waiting room, reception area, or even in a consult room, and it's a form of waste. And one point I put on the chat and LinkedIn that's very important is, it affects patient satisfaction. It's actually the #1 thing for most patients that relates to how they felt the visit was. And a poorly rated physician had an average wait time of about 34 minutes, and the 5-star ones were rated at an average of about 12 minutes. So it's definitely something that impacts an experience. And if, like many of you, you're looking to improve that experience, what better way than to value people's time and find better ways to improve it. So with that, I want to go into types of bottlenecks. And let me just pull this up real quickly. Okay. Actually, before we do, I'm going to share this. If you work in a practice, you probably have had plenty of sales pitches of technology that saves you time, or, oh, you need this software, you need this special contraption that saves time. And those items may save you time, but oftentimes they may not. Going back to that TSA example. And so what we're teaching today is not a system or a tool, but again, it's just a way of thinking about bottlenecks. It's a way of solving for them so that you can make the right decision when you're deciding on a new software. You can make the right decision of, will this tool be something that'll help like that check-in process earlier on, where patients will still be sitting in this position, or will it actually impact, something like the TSA gate?
Well, let me just chime in. I mean, what COVID has done is simply moved where people are waiting. And I've been on some of these Zoom calls where doctors are really proud, saying, hey, our waiting room's empty, because they're all sitting in their cars in the parking lot. And what's your view on that as a solution?
Yeah.
Did that eliminate wait?
Nope, just buries the problem. Yeah, it's still the patient perception is exactly the same. I was told I was supposed to be here at 10 o'clock in the morning. I got here at 9:50, and I'm sitting in my car for 25 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. So yeah, something to fix.
Doesn't solve the problem.
Yep, right on. So let's go to bottlenecks. And again, this is one portion. We'll come back to the end, other ways and other factors that affect wait times. But really, we would consider there's 3 different types for people to look out for. One is a person. A bottleneck can be a person. It can be usually in practices, a doctor. There's only one person to go around. And you would notice it if you saw there were 3 consult rooms and everyone was waiting for the doctor at that time. And the doctor can be only one place. And we'll give an example of how to address this type of bottleneck. The second could be a piece of equipment. Maybe you have a testing, equipment that you use at the beginning of a procedure, of a consult, and you just have too many people waiting for it. Everything past then may be super fast and great, but oh boy, that's having patients stack up and wait for it. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and if you have any examples that you want to share, if you're on this call, we'd love to hear it. One of my favorites from this, and this is something I did in my manufacturing life, is often people start with the solution of, oh, I'll just buy another piece of equipment. Well, if your equipment, often costs in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you buy it, you may find out you didn't even need to buy it. And so we often start with the challenge of like, hey, tell me how often that machine is utilized. Let's look into that. And more often than not, you may be able to delay purchasing that equipment. So we'll talk about that. And then third is it could be a process. It could just be a check-in, check-out process, or a variety of things. But that's another type that we've seen. So in summary, just to cover a few things. One, bottlenecks can change day to day. This isn't like a manufacturing line. People cancel their appointments. They come in from different things. It can change from day to day. It can be more than one thing certain times. And so today it's not like, oh, Lewis, it's not that simple. But what we're doing and what we want to start being able to look at is, let's take a bottleneck that we know is causing a problem. Let's focus on it. Let's improve it. And then we'll hit the next one. We'll improve that. We'll hit the next one. We'll improve that. And that's exactly why, again, our phones are so reliable as they are, cars are, is it's a mindset and a process of continuous improvement. But we don't have time to fix everything. So we want to fix these types of items.
Well, Lewis, it's a good point. And I think, as I see these three come up on the screen, I can think of specific examples with each one of them that I've encountered in my work with practices. And I want to just share one on the process side. So practice I'm working with, patients would come and arrive to have LASIK, and they would pay either with their credit card when they arrived to have their procedure on their big day, or they would sign the paperwork for the Green Sky Care Credit Financing, write a check, whatever it was. Well, when you talk to the front desk, they will tell you that this is a bottleneck because it could take 5 to 10 minutes for that payment to get processed, whatever form of payment. It's not just simple as handing over a credit card. There's things that need to be signed, and it just takes time. Further, from a patient's experience, it was kind of detracting because the patients are often nervous, about having refractive surgery that day. So one simple change in process, they implemented the ability for the patient to pay online in advance. And now, less than 2 months later, 70 to 80% of the patients are doing so, and the other 20% needed to come in. There was some issue, split payment, whatever it was. But this has made big smiles by the team at the front desk because it just cut down on the chaos on a busy surgery day. What's your thought about that? Is that a good example of process improvement?
Yeah, Sharif, and we're going to talk about that on the next portion here. Is you took something that was not value added to that patient visit and you took it offline. And that is a key strategy we're going to talk about today, is whether it's you on the call, someone on the call here going, I'm so busy, I don't have time, I can't move anything, to look for those types of things like the payment that maybe previously would be seen as, I have to do that at this visit, and let's move them offline, or we need a streamline. So yeah, that's a great example. But the biggest thing of all this is that just as Sharif, finding the things that are holding us back the most, and I guarantee your staff knows exactly where that is, whether it is, most often a person, equipment, or process. Yeah. I want to take something just outside of medical for a second and talk about Formula One racing and just and the idea of a pit stop where you come in for fuel, tire changes, etc. Make sure the car's running, etc. And there's a great video on this. We're not showing it here, but I would recommend looking at this of what did it look like in 1960 versus what it looks like today. And in 1960, it took about 60 seconds. And you watch them, they go, get some lug nuts or whatever they need. They walk back over, they set it. They think they're going really fast because they're moving fast. Contrast that to today. I don't, hopefully you can, I'd be interested without verbally saying it, what people think it is today. How long do you think a pit stop takes? And this is the answer. It's less than 2 seconds. Recently had a record breaker again. Pit stop went from 60 seconds down to less than 2. That didn't happen just because we have cool technology and phones that do that. That's from years and years of focusing on what is absolutely necessary while that car is in, because that is a bottleneck. That's the point where nothing else matters. Doesn't matter what's going on down the track or before. What matters is having the least possible time, because every second or millisecond saved there goes towards the result for the car. But what we're going to teach you is just a simplified version that's used in Formula One to create results like this. You're never going to have a 2-second wait time or console time, but I hope you'll find the skills helpful to chip away. Okay, so let's take an actual example. Let's start going through how we're going to look at bottlenecks. And the first thing is, let's say it's a person. This doctor has 10 hours of their day available. They're like, oh my goodness, Lewis, I'm so busy. I have no time. I can't work any faster. Well, let's first look at that doctor's time into a few different categories. First, there's time that is absolutely required. We're going to label that green. That's time with the patient that you're like, Lewis, I'm not going to give up that 5-10 minutes of saying, hey, how are you doing today? How can I help? What's going on? That's sacred time. And we label that with the green color. Then there's this other category, which we'll color as red, which is not required. This is push come to shove. Someone else can do it. You can do it outside of office hours or some other manifestation of that. It doesn't have to be exactly at that point, that time. Take that to Formula One. We go back. They actually, if the version of the lug nuts, they only have one, but it's already on the wheel. They don't have to go back and reach over and get that. So all the preparation for getting the car ready is actually done the day before or weeks before. That's red time. That's things that we can push offline. If you're filling out paperwork as a physician, can someone help and assist you? Do that before you or after you, or as Sharif gave an example, can we move the payment processes off? So we want to start to think of this not required time as a different category from the required time. Finally, there's always an in-between. There's this time that is probably, you would say, maybe you feel it's sacred, but it's not quite that valuable overall. One example is like answering questions from patients where it's like, yeah, it's valuable that I'm doing it, but it could be streamlined. Like maybe I give them more information ahead of time to think about so they have fewer questions or are more informed. Or secondly, hey, maybe I'm walking from one end of the building to the other. Yeah, I need to do that. I can't take that offline, but can I make it faster? Can I find rooms that are closer together? So these are activities that we're going to look to streamline. With that, the doctor would fill in their time, likely in like 5-minute increments, maybe 10, and start to label and be really honest with yourself. How you're using your time. Are you really using sacred, your green required time throughout the day? And I can tell you in the best manufacturing processes, the most efficient things, there's always about 20 to 30% waste. There's so much improvement in everything that we do. You would be surprised how quickly you find it. And we recommend for you to try it on your own bottleneck, and we'll give you an Excel file to do this. So what do we do with this information? First, we get rid of those red items. We find a way to take those, push them off. Either we offload them to someone who's less busy. Maybe they're busy, but it's not part of the constraint. Maybe we automate it. We find a way and we take those. And so when you're doing this for your bottleneck, you're going to go, okay, these are the easiest things to free up my time. And we see this with a lot of different examples. It's just the easiest thing to start with. So let's get rid of as many of those red, not required for that visit type of thing. Second, we're going to streamline these yellow items. We're going to find ways to get better. These usually take more effort. Actually, I've found in most cases, you just start, like Sharif mentioned, for the payment processes offline. You may look around and say, hey, we're done. We have enough capacity to do what we need, case closed. But if you still have more work to do, you go into the streamline mode. of these green items. And then finally, you fill in those areas, those gaps with more sacred time. If you want to have either more consults or you just want to have more flexibility. But the point here is that you've been purposeful of how you use your time, and you slowly chip away. And I wouldn't even say slowly. I found, in some cases, this is next day you're hauling, you're moving. But we start to move out our schedules so that even though our days may change, we have less and less, fewer and fewer non-value added or offline tasks as possible. Okay. So we have a tool for this, and it's available on our site. We'll give you mention and place on LinkedIn as well. But how you're going to use this, if you're looking to solve, is tomorrow. This can be used on a piece of equipment. It can be used with a person. If it's a person, have them carry this around every 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Write down what you're doing exactly, and start to label them. Was that really required? Absolutely important. Was it something that was neutral, or was it, hey, really, I could offload it? So a person could write that down. If it's a piece of equipment, keep that sheet near the piece of equipment. Record it for a day, maybe 2. You don't need to do it every day, but and get a snapshot, look at it with your team and go, is there anything that we can offload? And how do we do that? Is there anything that we can streamline? And you pick up 1 or 2 of those things. Don't try to overwhelm your team with trying to solve the world. But in most cases, you find a lot of opportunity very quickly. So this is just a tool that you can use. And if I were to restate what we're doing here, first, you find your bottleneck. You find out something that you think is constraining the flow, going all the way back to here. Where's the TSA checkpoint version of where I'm at? Second, you take some time to actually record with real data what's going on at that step. You categorize it into the category, into what type of time it is. Is it required? Is it neutral? Is it not required for that person or bottleneck? And then third, you prioritize and you choose a few things to work on to chip away, and you see how it goes. And you may have to repeat that cycle 1, 2, 3 times. But the whole idea here is just giving you and your team a better look at, hey, we can control these bottlenecks, we can find ways around them, and be more successful. I do want to say, this is one tool. I'll just bring it up right now. One part of a 4 module series that we're working with. That one is, as we said, bottlenecks. But another issue and opportunity for groups is to improve the consistency of the days. There's a lot of variation, and if it's one person filling out a form could take 1 minute, could take 5 minutes. How do we start to reduce that variation, improving consistency, so that each patient is not wildly having different wait times. Third is around our choreography. How do we design the best patient experience, where we actually draw it up on a board and start, hey, how do they check in? What steps do they have to do? Who hands off to the next person? How long does that take? And just really designing that experience. And then the fourth one is about prioritization. And as you start to build this continuous improvement mindset, everything starts to be shown to have opportunity. Whether it's, hey, I just made a defect that wasted 5 minutes of my time that I don't get back now. Let's fix it. But you have to be able to prioritize for success and start to build that culture to start, metabolizing all these opportunities that you have in front of you. So I'll pause there. Would love to just get any questions or comments from the audience or of this panel of just, how we can help you approach your bottlenecks or, anything else.
Yeah, there's people on the call. I see there's doctors, there's practice administrators, and there's industry people. So you've got a nice blend, and anybody is welcome. Just either raise their hand or, call on me if you've got something that you want to bring to the table and get some input from, particularly from Lewis or from Bernie, based on their experience. Yeah. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to ask you, Bernie. So Bernie, what can go wrong here? This all sounds good, and we know these tools work, but think now in the context of a medical practice, what can go wrong?
Yeah. Well, the number one barrier, I think, to implementing some of this is the culture of improvement, right? So this is very similar to Toyota Production System, which came out of Deming's work that you mentioned previously, and is now popularized under the term lean, which we don't fully align with. But the Toyota Production System is 50% culture or mindset of improvement and empowerment of what they call quality circles. Quality circles are people on the line that are closest to the work, that are empowered with a few tools like the ones that Louis just mentioned. It's not just, hey, take a run at this thing, but here's some methods, here's some proven approaches for the team to consider as they look to solve problems in their specific area of work. And so we've seen it, you mentioned Vance Thompson. Why did these tools flourish in that practice? It was because the culture at the top said, yeah, we can continue to improve. Everything's improve, everything should be put under the improvement lens for us to achieve our aspirational, vision, in their case, to be the best on earth. But where it breaks down is where, the surgeon can't flip the switch. Surgeon owner can't flip the switch from the laser suite or the operating room to the things that are required here, which is, it can be improved in the people who are closest to the activity of the folks that are best suited to that.
Well, I've actually got a comment on that, but Polly is unmuted. Polly.
Hey,
Neely.
Sharif. Hey, Bernie. Hey, Louis.
Hi, Polly. Great to
I'm
hear from
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. I have a puppy in my room who likes
You're not
my
the only
voice.
one.
She's the only one that likes my voice, honestly. I'm not sure she likes it. She barks when she hears it. Anyway, I love what you just said, Bernie. It makes such sense. It's the want to. And Sharif, you and I both know that. Louis, your plan is amazing. I love it. And I think it makes so much sense. The drive and the want to is the motivation. And that has to come from high down. Okay. And sometimes actually it may come from low up. It may be that employee or that administrator or that office manager that actually gets that team together and goes, you know what? Create a little competition in here. Let's see which department can do this the best. We all love competition. Formula One, come on, that's a perfect example. We all love competition. So you guys are onto something. I love what you're doing. I think the comment I would make is, how do you create the want to? Like you did with Vance Thompson, Sharif, you're so good at creating the want to. You always have been. So how do we create the want to?
Well, thank you. And I would tell you that it was actually Vance's younger partner, John Berdahl, who, 12, 13 years ago, told me to go listen to a talk by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, and it's called Start With Why. And it's a book and a website, and he's become very popular with this 18-minute TED Talk. I think it's one of the top 5 TED Talks of all time. But Start With Why basically says, really understand your why. Like, why am I in this business? Why did I choose to become a surgeon? And that thought is what drove a lot of how this book got written, because this book is about the why. It's about why patient experience is so important and how practices and doctors need to be thinking about it in the context of a modern world where people don't want to wait for anything. And this notion of a waiting room is something from, 50 to 100 years ago, where maybe it was acceptable at some point in time for people to wait because the doctor was up here and the consumer, the patient, was here, and the doctor's time was thought of as more valuable, be it because of skill or training or whatever. Well, things have balanced out. And my point of view is that the consumer and the doctor's time are equally valuable, and that the practices that honor this concept and will work to continuously improve so we reduce wait times are going to be the ones that win. Because patients don't want to wait. And in 2021 now, where pretty much all the information I need is accessible with a few keystrokes, people don't want to wait. And I think back over my career, I think about conversations I've had with Steve Seitzer, a great surgeon in Philadelphia, where we talk about these issues 20 years ago, right? And how the world is changing. And there's no question now, the world has changed when, you can be reviewed on Yelp and you can be skewered for a wait time. I think practices cannot afford to just say, well, my time's more valuable, right? Or we'll put the patient down. Those days are over. So that's my view on it. And Polly, great comments. Who else would like to talk, or as a comment, or something they want to share, a frustration that they're encountering around waiting?
Sharif, can I just say one more thing? The wait is not just in the waiting room or the reception area or whatever you want to call it. The wait is in the process.
It's a total time.
I think COVID, we've sort of, taken away the wait in the waiting room because we had to. We didn't have a choice. CDC did that for us. But how long do we keep that patient through the process? That's part of the wait. And I think that's the part that the staff really has control over.
Well, you're right on. You're right on with that. And I think the value of the tool that just this one tool that Lewis has shown tonight is it could be used anywhere in the practice. And you start by mapping out what happens from the time they arrive to the time they leave, which Bernie, I think you coined the term door to door. What happens from the time they open the door of their car to come in and to leave, to get out of the car, to come into your practice, to the time they get back in their car and close the door? What is everything happening in this door-to-door experience? This can be mapped out, and you can look at time. We're doing this in one of the practices I'm working closely now. We are literally down to the minute. We're looking at how long each process takes, and we're doing it not just with one patient, but with multiple patients, because we need to understand where variation exists. Some consults take longer than others. They do. And we need to be able to have enough capacity in our system to account for that. And Lewis, when you showed the green, yellow, and red, right, you had it this long, and then once you remove things, it got to this long, and then it got down to this long. And you're actually not saying that every consult is going to be 4.7 minutes. That's not the point. The point is to have enough flexibility in the system, because you understood that, if that patient is sitting there waiting for 11 minutes for the next step in the process, that's a wasted opportunity. And when we're talking about a potential sale of a $5,000 to $6,000 LASIK, or a $6,000 or more upgrade to a refractive implant, or a $12,000 to $13,000 pure cash pay implant, my gosh, we're talking about dollars like that. It's worth examining where we can eliminate wait, because wait is waste. It's just a waste. And, if I'm a consumer and I'm being asked to spend a lot of money and you're making me wait, that you're sending me a different kind of message. It says, wow, you're not going to value my time. Why should I value your time with my money? I mean, I think it's kind of as simple as that. And this is stuff that is really subtle and often not spoken. The patient may not say to the doctor's face, you made me wait too long. But what's happening is they're just saying no. And they're taking their business elsewhere, or deciding not to have a procedure at all. And that's what we're trying to address here.
Ollie keeps it coming. I like the question. So is the wait the process, doctor, or the staff capabilities? This is part of going back to what we mentioned. Is there's a few other tools here, and I would say that comes into the consistency portion, where and just working in a doctor's office myself, have seen this variation where one. Can you see me?
Go ahead now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. It may stop, but consistency, and it involves, when you think about in a practice, the training of each individual is when you get really consistent. Part of the training should be like, hey, it normally takes us about 10 minutes to do this test for this patient. We don't want you to rush. We're not telling people to go, worry about a minute or here, but hey, if you're constantly taking 20 minutes, there's something wrong. And so let's look at how our hands are moving, or even the most minute details can make a big difference. So I think there's several pieces of this that you would, usually it's a judgment call where we start. But in our program, we kind of go through one by one. We start with bottlenecks. We then go to where defects, variation are occurring, and we start to build out a picture there. And then we go into the process mapping and so on. So I hope that helps. Polly? Oh, we have another.
You need to unmute Polly. I think she had an additional comment, I think.
Yeah,
Can you unmute her?
yeah. Polly, you can unmute if you'd like. Yeah.
She's worried about her dog talking, so she'll unmute if she wants to add something.
My dog's in the back room.
No, I was just saying, I love your answer. It's a great answer.
Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, you have a kitty cat. How cute.
Yeah,
Um,
he doesn't bark, so I don't let him in.
well,
So Bernie, are these problems easy to solve? Is this like a no-brainer, easy to solve kind of stuff, or does this take like real focus and commitment?
Yeah, I think it takes both focus and commitment. I think Lewis's fourth bucket there is about prioritization, not letting perfect get in the way of good enough, which is not something that we learn in medical school or in most schools, right? But if you have closed loop process, prioritization is welcome in the sense that you're going to continue to measure and you're going to continue to improve in a system that's continuously improving. And so you're never there, right? You're never going to fully solve this problem, but you can make a huge impact on it. And to just echo some of the things that you were saying before, Sharif, when we've analyzed customer satisfaction in this area, patient satisfaction, we have found both wait time and Polly, to your point, total time to be the top dissatisfiers of patient satisfaction, both on a score standpoint, as well as on a correlation to willingness to recommend standpoint. And it's that second metric that is probably even more telling. The high correlation says that when people wait or when they spend too much time in your practice, they're much less likely to recommend your practice to somebody else as a place to have LASIK or premium lens or whatever. And so it really impacts bottom line from that, from that fundamental standpoint. Fewer people are the more that you cause people to wait, the more total time you put them through, the less likely they're going to recommend, and that's going to impact your business. So it just makes good business sense to solve these problems and to really improve that patient experience, which there's nobody more passionate about that than Sharif, and that's why we've sort of piggybacked on this movement with some of our thinking and a few of these tools.
Well, let's talk about next steps. And Lewis, go ahead and put up that slide. I will say that doctors are very comfortable in the surgical suite using what you just talked about, Bernie, which is like, how do I improve my surgical outcome? What clinical protocol do I put in place so I can save time doing a procedure? I mean, think about how cataract surgeries continue to get better and better, and LASIK better and better and better. And I think it applies to every surgery. Now, if that doctor, who is also the owner of his or her practice, will just take the word clinical protocol and replace it with customer protocol, then all of this makes sense. Then they can really start seeing, wow, I could be achieving the same results in the processes outside the OR that will improve satisfaction and reduce dissatisfaction and increase the referral rate and the likelihood to recommend. And guess what? The business does better and the entire market does better. So with that, we have a website, eliminatewait.com. We have this module that Lewis talked about is free. And we encourage you to go to the website, click test drive, and look at the program and start playing with this as early as tomorrow in your practices. It does take a cultural imperative from the top. I think both doctor and administrator working together to get a team involved. And from there, if you like this, we can build out the whole program. We have different levels of involvement with different free schedules, including from DIY up to we'll come out to your practice and actually do it. And those are details that we can get into later, but this is a great next step. I just want to thank all of you who attended tonight. It's great. I appreciated the commentary. Polly, Bernie, liked having our onstage guest, Tony Sterrett, who's a longtime administrator, and Steve Seepser, longtime well-renowned surgeon in ophthalmology. And with that, we will We'll say goodnight. If any of you need to reach out to us, just do it via LinkedIn or anything else. We'd be glad to answer questions. Thanks so much for your time tonight, and I hope everybody has a great evening.